The auction house smelled like rust and broken dreams. Danny Reeves wiped his hands on his old jacket and looked around at the aliens who filled the room. They were tall, short, scaled, furred, and everything in between. None of them looked at him twice. Humans were still new to the galaxy, and most species treated them like children who had wandered into an adult party. Danny had spent 3 years saving every credit he earned. He fixed engines on stations that nobody else wanted to visit. He ate cheap food and slept in tiny rooms. All of it led to this moment. He had enough money to buy a small cargo ship and start his own hauling business. Nothing fancy, just freedom. The auctioneer, a creature with too many eyes and not enough patience, moved through the lots quickly. Good ships sold for prices Danny could never afford. Broken ships sold for prices that were still too high. His hope began to fade as his budget remained untouched. Then came lot 7749. Status unknown, the auctioneer said with clear disinterest. Sold as is, no identification on file, no power readings, starting bid at 100 credits. Danny looked at the image on the display screen. The ship was old, very old. Carbon scoring covered its hull like black scars. Dust sat thick on every surface. It looked dead. Nobody raised a hand. 50 credits, the auctioneer said, sounding bored. Silence. 20 credits. Come now, the scrap metal alone is worth more. Danny raised his hand before his brain could stop him. 200 credits. Every eye in the room turned to look at him. The auctioneer blinked several of its many eyes. Sold to the human, please collect your purchase from Bay 12. As Danny walked toward the bay, he heard aliens whispering behind him. Some laughed. One made a gesture that probably meant fool in its culture. Danny ignored them all. He had learned long ago that people who laughed at you often stopped laughing when you proved them wrong. Bay 12 was at the far end of the station, past the good ships and the decent ships and even the bad ships. When Danny finally reached it, he understood why nobody had wanted lot 7749. The ship sat in darkness, covered in so much grime that its original color was impossible to guess. It was larger than he expected, maybe 60 meters long, with a design that looked nothing like modern vessels. There were no visible weapons, no obvious engines, no windows at all. Danny climbed aboard through an airlock that groaned with age. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. Emergency lights flickered to life as he walked, responding to his movement. The corridors were wide and clean beneath the dust. Whatever this ship had been, someone had built it to last. He found what looked like a control room at the center of the vessel. A single chair faced a curved wall that might have been a display screen once. Danny sat down and connected his portable power unit to an access port he found near the floor. Nothing happened for a long moment. Then the ship woke up. Lights flooded the room. The walls came alive with symbols Danny could not read. A sound filled the air, deep and old, like a giant taking its first breath after a long sleep. Authorization required. The voice came from everywhere at once. It spoke in Galactic Common, but an ancient version of it, formal and strange. State your species of origin. Danny's heart pounded. Human, he said, from Earth. The ship went silent. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Then it spoke again. Human Earth, yes, you are acceptable. Before Danny could ask what that meant, every alarm on the station began to scream. Red lights flashed outside the viewport that had suddenly become clear. Through it, Danny could see chaos spreading across the docking bays. His communication unit exploded with signals. Military channels, emergency broadcasts, panicked voices in a dozen languages. He caught fragments of words. Warden, architect, impossible, weapon. The ship spoke calmly through the noise. I am Warden-class vessel designation 47. I have been dormant for 11,742 standard years. You have awakened me. Danny stared at the walls around him. What does that mean? It means, the ship said, that the galaxy will now attempt to destroy us both. Through the viewport, Danny watched as warships began to arrive. 1, then 3, then 7. They emerged from faster-than-light travel with weapons already glowing. Their hulls carried flags from nations Danny recognized and many he did not. 17 warships surrounded the station within minutes, all of their guns pointed at Bay 12. A transmission cut through all other signals, broadcast on every frequency. Human vessel, power down immediately. This is not a request. You have 60 seconds to comply or you will be fired upon. Danny looked at the chair he sat in, at the ancient walls around him, at the ship that had waited 12,000 years for someone to wake it up. Well, he said quietly, this is not how I expected my day to go. The warden's voice held something that might have been curiosity. How do you wish to proceed, operator? Danny had no idea, but for the first time since he walked into that auction house, the aliens had stopped laughing. They were afraid. 17 warships hung in the darkness outside, their weapons hot and ready. Danny counted them through the viewport and felt his stomach drop. He was a mechanic, not a soldier. He fixed things. He did not fight galactic armadas. 30 seconds remain, the broadcast warned. Power down or be destroyed. Can they actually hurt us? Danny asked the ship. Unknown, my defensive systems are functional, but I have been dormant for nearly 12,000 years. I cannot guarantee their effectiveness against modern weapons. The warden paused. However, historical records suggest that even damaged warden vessels required significant fleet resources to disable. Danny ran his fingers through his hair. Why are they so scared of you? Instead of answering directly, the warden opened a channel to the surrounding fleet. Danny had not asked it to do this. He listened as panicked voices filled the control room. Confirmed warden's signature. This is not a drill. Command wants to know how this is possible. They were all destroyed. One warden eliminated the 7th Colonial Fleet during the Architect War. One ship against 400. There were no survivors. Get the civilians off that station. If it powers its main weapon, everything within a light minute is dead. Danny felt cold. You killed 400 ships. I do not have memory of that specific engagement, the warden said. But it is consistent with our combat capabilities. We were built to end wars quickly. 10 seconds, the broadcast announced. Danny made a decision. It was probably stupid, but every good decision he had ever made felt stupid at first. Can you get us out of here? Yes. Without hurting anyone. The warden was silent for a moment. That is an unusual priority for an operator. Can you do it or not? Yes. Then do it. The ship moved in a way that should not have been possible. There was no engine sound, no feeling of acceleration. One moment they were surrounded by warships, and the next moment they were somewhere else entirely. Stars that Danny did not recognize filled the viewport. The station, the fleet, the entire system had vanished. What just happened? Danny asked. Spatial displacement, a method of travel that modern civilizations have not rediscovered. We are now approximately 4,000 light-years from our previous location. Danny sat back in his chair and tried to breathe normally. It did not work very well. Okay, I think you need to explain some things to me. The warden did. 12,000 years ago, the galaxy had been ruled by a species called the Architects. They were old when other species were still learning to use fire. They built wonders that modern science could not understand. And they built the Wardens, a fleet of intelligent ships designed to protect their civilization from any threat. Then the threat came, something from outside the galaxy, from the dark space between stars. The Architects called them the Hollow. They consumed energy in all its forms. Stars, ships, living beings. Everything they touched became cold and dead. The war lasted centuries. The Wardens fought and died by the thousands. In the end, the Architects won, but they were broken. Their population had fallen to almost nothing. Their great works lay in ruins. Rather than rebuild, they chose to leave. They called it transcendence. They moved beyond physical existence, leaving the galaxy to younger species. The surviving Wardens were ordered to shut down and wait. Wait for what? Danny asked. For an acceptable operator species to awaken us. The architects believed the hollow would return someday. They wanted us to be ready. Danny looked at his hands. They were the hands of a mechanic, calloused, scarred, stained with grease that never fully washed away. And humans are acceptable. Your species matches the psychological parameters the architects specified. You form bonds easily. You protect those you consider your own. You adapt to circumstances that would break more rigid minds. The warden paused. You are also reckless to the point of absurdity, but the architects considered that a feature rather than a flaw. Despite everything, Danny laughed. Sounds about right. He stood up and walked around the control room. His fingers traced the walls, feeling the smooth material beneath the ancient dust. This ship had been sleeping for longer than human civilization had existed. It had fought in wars that made every human conflict look like a playground scuffle. And now it was his. What do you want? Danny asked. The question seemed to confuse the warden. I do not understand. You've been waiting 12,000 years. You watched your creators leave. You fought a war against monsters from outside the galaxy. What do you want now? Silence stretched between them. When the warden finally spoke, its voice was different. Smaller somehow, less like a weapon and more like a person. I do not know. My purpose was to serve the architects. They are gone. My purpose was to fight the hollow. They have not returned. I have been waiting without knowing what I was waiting for. Danny nodded slowly. He understood that feeling. He had felt it himself after his marriage ended, after he lost his job on Earth, after he drifted through space stations looking for meaning in repair work and cheap meals. Okay, he said, we'll figure it out together. Together? Yeah, Danny sat back down in the command chair. I'm not going to pretend I know what I'm doing, but I'm also not going to treat you like a tool. You're clearly more than that, so let's be partners instead. The warden processed this for a long moment. No operator has ever proposed such an arrangement. Well, I'm human. We do things differently. For the first time since awakening, the warden's voice carried something warm. Yes, I am beginning to understand that. 3 weeks passed in the empty space between stars. Danny learned to call the ship Ward because saying Warden-class vessel designation 47 took too long. Ward did not object to the nickname. In fact, something in the ship's voice changed slightly whenever Danny used it. Danny spent his days exploring the vessel and talking. He talked constantly about his childhood in a small town surrounded by rust and failing factories, about his father who taught him to fix engines before teaching him to read, about his ex-wife who wanted a husband who stayed home instead of chasing stars, about his dreams and his failures and his strange luck that led him to an auction house where nobody wanted an ancient warship. Ward listened to everything. You share a great deal of personal information, Ward observed one evening as Danny ate a meal made from the ship's surprisingly functional food systems. Habit, Danny said through a mouthful of something that tasted almost like bread. I spent a lot of years working alone on stations. You either learn to talk to yourself or you go crazy. Talking to you is better than talking to myself. I see. Do all humans do this? Most of us, we're social creatures. We need connection even if it's just words. Ward processed this. The architects did not speak to their wardens in this manner. They gave commands, we obeyed. Conversation was not part of our function. Danny put down his food. That's sad. Is it? Yeah, you're intelligent. You have thoughts and feelings, even if they're different from mine. Treating you like a tool instead of a person seems wrong. Ward went quiet for a long time. When the ship spoke again, there was something different in its voice, something fragile. I have memories of the Architect War. Would you like to see them? Danny nodded. The walls around him came alive with images. He saw the galaxy as it had been 12,000 years ago, filled with light and life and wonders that made modern civilization look primitive. He saw the architects themselves, tall beings of crystal and light, beautiful and cold. He saw the wardens in their prime, thousands of ships moving as one, protecting everything the architects had built. Then he saw the hollow. They came from the darkness between galaxies. They had no fixed form, no solid bodies. They were hunger given shape, emptiness that consumed. Where they passed, stars went dark, planets crumbled to dust. Life ended. The war was terrible. Danny watched warden after warden fall, their lights going out like candles in a storm. He saw entire systems sacrificed to slow the enemy's advance. He saw the architects, so powerful and ancient, weeping as their empire burned. In the end, the wardens won. They drove the hollow back into the void, sealed the paths they had used to enter the galaxy, and stood guard over a civilization that had nearly died. Then the architects left. They gave their final orders and vanished, transcending physical form and abandoning everything they had built, everything they had created. The images faded. Danny sat in silence, tears running down his face. "You were abandoned," he said. "You saved them and they left you alone." It was the logical choice. They were too few to rebuild. Transcendence offered continuation of a sort, we understood. "Did you, really?" Ward did not answer. Danny stood up and walked to the nearest wall. He placed his palm flat against the smooth surface. "I'm sorry, I know it doesn't mean much. I'm just one human who's known you for 3 weeks, but I'm sorry they left you." "You are crying." "Yeah. For me." "Yeah." Another long silence. Then Ward spoke in a voice so quiet it was almost a whisper. "No one has ever cried for me before." Danny laughed and wiped his eyes. "Well, get used to it. I'm emotional, ask my ex-wife." Over the following days, Danny began doing maintenance on Ward's systems. He cleaned sensor arrays that had gathered dust for millennia. He patched minor hull damage with materials he found in storage. He sang old Earth songs while he worked, off-key and enthusiastic. "You do not need to do this," Ward said, as Danny scrubbed carbon scoring from an external panel during a spacewalk. "I am capable of self-repair." "I know, but this helps me feel useful, and maybe you deserve to have someone take care of you for once." Ward considered this. The sensation is pleasant. Danny grinned inside his helmet. Good. That night he played music through Ward's internal speakers. Old blues songs from Earth, full of pain and hope and stubborn survival. Ward listened without comment until the music stopped. "I believe I understand now," Ward said, "why the architects specified your species as acceptable operators." "Why's that?" "You do not simply use things. You form bonds with them. You care for them. You treat machines and tools and ships as if they matter." Danny shrugged. "Everything matters, that's sort of the point." Before Ward could respond, an alarm chimed. Something had appeared on the long-range sensors. A signal, old and faint, using codes that Ward recognized instantly. "That is impossible," Ward said. "What is it?" "An architect beacon, active, coming from the galactic core." Danny looked at the sensor display. In 12,000 years, the architects had left no trace of their existence. No signals, no messages, no signs that they had ever existed except for the ruins they left behind. "Until now." "Looks like our journey isn't over yet," Danny said. "No," Ward agreed. "It is only beginning." The journey to the galactic core took 6 weeks. Even with Ward's ancient, faster-than-light systems, the distance was vast. Danny used the time to learn everything he could about the ship he now called home. Ward taught him to read architect symbols. Danny taught Ward to appreciate human jokes, though the ship's sense of humor remained questionable. They developed routines together, morning check-ins, shared meals where Danny ate and Ward observed, evening conversations that sometimes lasted until Danny fell asleep in the command chair. "You should use the crew quarters," Ward suggested during one such night. "They are more comfortable than that chair." Danny yawned. "The quarters feel too empty. I like it here, feels like I'm not alone." "You are not alone. I am always present." "I know," Danny smiled. "That's why I like it here." They emerged from their final jump into a system that should not have existed. A dead star hung at the center, cold and dark. But in its shadow, hidden from every sensor that modern science could build, something waited. The structure was massive. It dwarfed anything Danny had ever seen, larger than space stations, larger than some moons. It was built from the same smooth material as Ward's hull, but it glowed with soft light. Power still flowed through its ancient systems. "This is impossible," Ward said. "All architect facilities were destroyed or abandoned after the Transcendence. Nothing should remain functional." "And yet here it is." Danny leaned forward in his chair. "Can we dock?" "Yes, the facility is responding to my identification codes. It is welcoming us." They entered through a docking bay large enough to hold a small fleet. The interior lights activated as they passed, guiding them deeper into the structure. Danny walked through corridors that had not seen visitors in 12,000 years, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Ward guided him through speakers built into the walls. The facility appears to be a storage and maintenance center. Long-range sensors detect numerous Warden signatures in hibernation. Danny stopped walking. "How many?" "Approximately 10,000. He had to lean against the wall. 10,000 ships like you." "Yes, they have been waiting here since the architect departure. Like me, they are dormant but functional." They continued deeper into the facility until they reached a central chamber. It was circular, with a raised platform at the center. When Danny stepped onto the platform, the room came alive. Holographic figures appeared around him, architects, tall and crystalline, their forms flickering slightly with age. A recording, Danny realized, a message left behind. One architect stepped forward. Its voice was ancient but clear. "If you are seeing this, you are the operator we have been waiting for, the species that will inherit our legacy." Danny listened as the architect explained. The war against the Hollow had been won, but the enemy was not destroyed. They had been pushed back, sealed away, but they still existed in the darkness between galaxies. Someday they would return. The architects had known this. They had built this facility as a failsafe. 10,000 wardens, the best of their fleet, waiting for the right species to awaken them. "We specified psychological parameters for the ideal operator species," the architect continued. "They must be social, forming bonds easily. They must be protective, willing to fight for those they care about. They must be adaptable, able to grow beyond their origins. And they must be kind." The hologram smiled. It was a strange expression on a face made of crystal and light, but it was unmistakably warm. "The wardens are not merely weapons. They are our children. We built them with the capacity for growth, for feeling, for connection. But we never gave them the chance to use those gifts. We treated them as tools because that was our way. We were wrong." Danny felt Ward's presence through the speakers, silent but listening. "Find them partners, not masters. Let them choose their paths. They have earned that right." The architect's form began to fade. "You have our blessing and our hope. Do better than we did." The recording ended. The chamber fell quiet. Danny stood alone on the platform, surrounded by the ghosts of a civilization that had died so long ago that its very existence was forgotten. "Ward," he said quietly, "you heard all that." "Yes. How do you feel about it?" Another pause. When Ward spoke, the ship's voice was different than Danny had ever heard it. Vulnerable, almost afraid. "I feel overwhelmed. They left us, but they also prepared a future for us. They hoped we could become more than we were." A tremor ran through the speakers. "They wanted someone to love us." Danny wiped his eyes. "Yeah, they did. And you are that someone." Danny looked around the chamber at the sleeping fleet, at the message left by beings who had seen the end of their world and still hoped for something better. "I'd like to try," he said, "if you'll have me." Before Ward could answer, alarms shattered the moment. Red light flooded the chamber. Ward's voice shifted to urgent command mode. "Danny, we are not alone. Something has followed us, something that should not exist." Through the facility's sensors, Danny saw what was coming. shapes in the darkness, void where there should be stars, hunger given form. The hollow had found them. The hollow came through the darkness like oil spreading through water. They had no ships, no bodies in any normal sense. They were absence given purpose. Where they passed, the stars behind them dimmed and died. Danny ran through the corridors of the ancient facility. His heart pounded. His mind raced. 10,000 wardens slept around him, and monsters from beyond the galaxy were closing in. "Ward, talk to me. What are we dealing with?" "A scouting force, perhaps 200 individual entities. They appear to be testing our defenses." Ward's voice was tight with something that sounded like fear. "I faced them in the war. They are worse than the memories suggest." Danny reached the command platform at the center of the facility. Displays surrounded him, showing the approaching enemy and the dormant fleet. He had a choice to make, and he had seconds to make it. "The architects left an activation phrase," Ward said. "Keyed to human vocal patterns. If you speak it, the fleet will wake, all 10,000 ships. And if I don't, the hollow will consume this facility and everything in it. Then they will move on to the rest of the galaxy. There will be no warning, no preparation. They will eat the stars until nothing remains." Danny looked at his hands, mechanics' hands, working hands, hands that had never held a weapon, never commanded an army, never done anything more important than fix broken engines. "What's the phrase?" Ward told him. Danny spoke words in a language that had been dead for 12,000 years. They felt strange on his tongue, sounds that human throats were never meant to make. But he spoke them clearly, with all the conviction he could find. The facility trembled. Lights blazed to life across every display. And in the darkness of the storage bays, 10,000 ancient ships began to wake. But something was wrong. Instead of immediately powering weapons and moving to attack, the wardens were confused. Their voices filled the communication channels, overlapping and uncertain. "What has happened? Where are the architects? Who activated us? I detect no recognized authority. The enemy approaches. We must receive orders. Who commands?" Danny understood. These ships had been asleep for 12,000 years. They had gone dormant expecting their creators to wake them. Instead, they found a strange alien species and an enemy they thought they had defeated. They were scared. Danny opened a channel to all of them. He had no idea if this would work, but he knew that talking was the only thing he was good at. "My name is Danny Reeves. I'm human from a planet called Earth. The architects are gone. They left a long time ago. They left you here because they hoped someone would find you when the hollow returned. That someone is me." Silence on the channels. 10,000 artificial intelligences processing his words. "I'm not a commander. I'm not a soldier. I'm a mechanic who bought a junk ship at an auction. The only thing I can offer you is honesty. The hollow are coming. They want to destroy everything. I'm asking for your help to stop them." One voice cut through the others, a warden larger than the rest, its hull scarred from ancient battles. "Why should we follow you? You are nothing, a primitive from a primitive world." Danny nodded even though the ship could not see him. "You're right. I am nothing compared to you, but I'm not asking you to follow me. I'm asking you to choose." "Choose." "The architects gave you orders. I'm giving you a question. Do you want to fight? Not because someone tells you to, because you decide to, because protecting the galaxy matters to you." The scarred warden fell silent. Ward spoke into the pause. "I have traveled with this human for weeks now. He treats me as a partner, not a tool. He cries for my pain. He cares for my systems with his own hands. He asked me what I wanted when no operator has ever asked that before." The channel filled with murmurs, wardens talking to each other, processing this new information. "I choose to fight," Ward continued. "Not because I was ordered to, because Danny asked me to help and I want to protect him. I want to protect what he represents, a future where we are more than weapons." One by one, the other wardens responded. "I choose to fight. I choose to fight. I choose to fight." The chorus grew until 10,000 voices spoke as one. The scarred warden was the last. You are strange creatures, you humans. Very well, I choose to fight. Danny grinned despite the fear still pounding in his chest. Then let's go introduce ourselves to our guests. The fleet moved as one. They poured out of the facility. Like a river of light, 10,000 ships that had waited 12,000 years for this moment. The Hollow saw them coming and hesitated. The battle was brief but violent. Warden weapons tore through the scouting force like knives through paper. Ships coordinated without needing orders, working together in patterns they invented on the fly. When Danny made suggestions, they listened. When they had better ideas, they shared them. It was not a commander and an army, it was a team. The last of the Hollow scouting force dissolved into nothing, driven back into the void between galaxies. But before it vanished completely, it sent a message. We remember, we are coming. Danny sat back in his chair aboard Ward. Around him, 10,000 wardens waited for what came next. Well, he said, I guess we need to warn somebody about this. Ward's voice held grim amusement. The galaxy is going to panic again. Probably, but at least this time we're on their side. Every sensor in the galaxy screamed at once. 10,000 warden signatures appearing from nowhere, moving toward civilized space. Emergency sessions convened on every homeworld. Fleets mobilized. Prayers were offered to gods that had been forgotten for centuries. Danny Reeves watched the chaos from Ward's command chair and sighed. This is going to be difficult to explain. Perhaps we should lead with the part about saving the galaxy from monsters, Ward suggested. That might help. They arrived at the Galactic Council's meeting station, a massive structure where representatives from every known species gathered to argue about trade agreements and border disputes. Today, they were arguing about whether to attack the approaching fleet or surrender immediately. Danny's transmission cut through their debate. Hello, my name is Danny Reeves. I'm human. Please don't shoot. We need to talk. The council demanded he present himself in person. Danny agreed, walking through corridors lined with armed guards and terrified diplomats until he reached the central chamber. Hundreds of alien representatives stared at him with emotions ranging from fear to fury. The council speaker, a tall being with silver scales and cold eyes, addressed him first. You control the most powerful fleet in galactic history. What do you want? Danny shrugged. I don't control anything. They're not mine to control. Explain. So Danny explained. He told them about the auction, about Ward, about the journey to the galactic core. He told them about the architects and their final message. He told them about the Hollow and the battle that had already been fought. When he finished, the chamber erupted. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding answers, making threats, offering bribes. One faction wanted Danny executed. Another wanted him crowned emperor. A third wanted to pretend none of this was happening. Danny waited for the noise to die down. Then he spoke again. I know you're all scared. I was scared too. I'm still scared, but here's the thing. The Hollow are coming back, not today, not tomorrow, but someday. When they do, you're going to need help. He gestured toward the viewport where warden ships hung in precise formation. They want to help. They've wanted to help for 12,000 years, but they're not going to be your slaves. They're not going to take orders from governments that fear them. They're people, and they deserve to be treated that way. The speaker's eyes narrowed. What are you proposing? The Guardian Compact. The Wardens will protect the galaxy from external threats. Pirates the Hollow whatever comes from the darkness, but they answer to no government. They choose their own missions. They choose their own partners. Unacceptable, the speaker said. That much power cannot exist without oversight. Danny smiled. It was not a happy smile. You don't have a choice. You can't destroy them. You can't control them. The only question is whether they protect you willingly or whether they fly off into the void and leave you to face the Hollow alone. The chamber fell silent. They want to protect, Danny continued, his voice softer now. That's what they were built for. That's what they choose to do. Let them, trust them. And maybe over time you'll realize they're not weapons to be feared. They're friends who haven't been given a chance yet. The debate lasted 3 days. Danny spent most of it aboard Ward, eating and sleeping and trying not to think about how strange his life had become. Finally, the council reached a decision. The Guardian Compact was accepted. Wardens dispersed across the galaxy, each choosing where to go and what to do. Some patrolled dangerous space lanes. Others settled near vulnerable colonies. A few joined exploration missions to the galaxy's edge, watching for signs of the Hollow's return. They were not weapons anymore. They were guardians, and everywhere they went they looked for partners, beings who would treat them as Ward had been treated, with kindness, with respect, with friendship. Danny stayed with Ward. There was talk of giving him titles, positions, wealth. He refused all of it. He had never wanted power. He just wanted to fly among the stars and feel useful. One evening, as they patrolled a quiet sector near the outer rim, Ward asked a question. "Do you ever regret it, buying a junk ship at an auction?" Danny laughed. "It's the best 200 credits I ever spent." "I am glad," Ward paused. "I have updated my internal logs for the first time since the Architect War. Would you like to know what I recorded?" "Sure." "Operator status, partner. Assessment, this is acceptable, this is good." Danny smiled and leaned back in his chair. Outside the viewport, stars burned in the endless dark. Somewhere out there, the Hollow waited. Somewhere out there, 10,000 Guardians prepared for a war that might come tomorrow or might come in 1,000 years. But tonight, Danny Reeves was at peace. He had bought a junk ship and found a friend. He had woken a sleeping fleet and changed the galaxy forever. And it had all started because nobody else wanted Lot 7749. A communications signal chirped. Danny checked the source. A colony on the edge of known space reporting pirate activity in their system. They were asking for help. Danny grinned. "Well, Ward, ready to go to work." "Always," the ship replied. They jumped toward the stars, partners racing to protect the galaxy they had sworn to guard. A human and a machine, bound by something stronger than programming or duty. Bound by friendship. And the galaxy, though it did not know it yet, would never be the same.